We will be giving details tomorrow, but I can tell you that the talks were productive. We had the vice premier, two vice ministers who were integrally involved, Ambassador Jameson and myself, and I spoke to President Trump, as did Ambassador Jameson last night, and he is fully informed of what is going on. So there will be a complete briefing tomorrow morning. I will turn it over to the ambassador.
Thank you, Secretary. I want to echo the Secretary's remarks with respect to the Swiss government. They've been so welcoming, and they posted this, and everything has gone off flawlessly, and we appreciate that. And again, to the Chinese negotiators, Vice Premier Liu He, Vice Minister Li Qiangong, and Vice Minister Liao Min worked very diligently, and these are very tough negotiators. A couple of them I know from before and have had past interactions with them. And this was, as the Secretary pointed out, a very constructive 2 days. It's important to understand how quickly we were able to come to agreement, which reflects that perhaps the differences were not so large as maybe thought. That being said, there was a lot of groundwork that went into these 2 days. Just remember why we're here in the first place. The United States has a massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So the president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs. And we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
And I would just conclude with saying it was done in the spirit of cooperation, shared interest, mutual respect, and we look forward to sharing the details with you tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
All right, so just listening in there to some brief comments short. This was happening over in Switzerland. As you know, that talks do continue right now between representatives from the United States and also representatives from China concerning these trade deals that are trying to be put in place, given the fact that the Trump administration has brought forth several of these tariffs and global markets continuing to respond to that. I'd like to continue on this conversation actually by bringing into the program now Martin Lance, also Marty Lass. He is the author, of The Real Trump Deal, an eye-opening look at how he really negotiates. So Marty, thanks so much for being with us here live now from Fox, and really perfect timing because we weren't expecting those remarks there in Switzerland. Let's get a full breakdown, though. I mean, you wrote a book on how President Trump negotiates, the art of the deal, as he likes to call it. So what do we expect when we even see U.S. representatives trying to negotiate these trade deals?
Well, you know, it's really interesting that we're a little bit confused as to what to actually analyze and evaluate in this context. When he was in business for 40 plus years, and I analyzed over 100 of his real estate and other gaming deals, he had very clear, straightforward goals, right? Buy low, sell high. His goal was to make money, but we really don't have a clear understanding in all these trade negotiations as to what he's trying to accomplish. He just did a framework deal with the UK, but we had a trade surplus. So was the goal there to reduce our deficit? Well, that obviously didn't happen. On the other hand, the UK is an important trading partner, and it was very smart of him to start out the negotiations country-wise to try to get a deal with one of our strongest and longest allies. With regard to China, he really hasn't been able to generate the type of leverage that we would like because he's been sticking a stick in the eye of all of our allies, and we need our allies to really generate the type of leverage with China if his goal is to get that trade deficit down. So it's been very difficult to evaluate. When he was in business, it was clear. Obviously, when you're negotiating with, I don't know how many countries at the same time, 20 plus, and you've got different goals and interests with each one of them, it becomes very, very complicated and complex.
I want to dive a little bit deeper into that because I think that that's the big question right now is how different it is for the president to do his normal business negotiations when he was just an entrepreneur versus now dealing with all of these global superpowers. So what kind of strategies do you think the president would employ to try to get these successful deals in place?
Well, interestingly enough, we know the strategies he's employing because he's been employing them for his entire business career, and he employed them for 4 years during his first term. He's a very instinctive, gut-driven negotiator. And we know that because it's been clear, and we saw that right after Liberation Day when he said no exceptions, no exceptions, but then his gut obviously told him something different, and we've got a 90-day pause. So there are major differences between trade negotiations and business real estate negotiations. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of issues on the table. They're more complex. There are actually two, if not more, negotiations going on at the same time. You're negotiating with these other countries, but you're also negotiating, in effect, with the American public at the same time. You're also negotiating with Congress. And with both the Republicans and the Democrats on the Hill because of the obviously very narrow majority that he has in both the House and the Senate. So it's incredibly complex and difficult. Some people say that he's playing like, 3-4-dimensional chess. I would say, based on my analysis of his negotiation for the past 40, 50 years, it's really not that complicated to analyze what he's doing. Whether or not it's going to have a successful impact, that's a very different question.
I really like that you threw in this fact that not only is he trying to negotiate with other countries, but also with the American people as a whole. Which side do you think is going to be more difficult for the president?
Well, I think it's going to be far more difficult for him to get these deals with these other countries. He is a very, as I said before, a very instinctive, intuitive negotiator, and he has a very short-term focus in most of his negotiations. He really doesn't focus on the long-term relationship, and that's consistent with his negotiations in business, right? You buy a building, and once the seller has sold, you usually don't have much of a future relationship with them. Obviously, with other countries, you do. With the American people, you do. So it's a level of sophistication and complexity that he really has never dealt with, and he really didn't change his negotiation strategy much during his first term. So I expect to see more of the same. He's a 78-year-old, almost 79-year-old guy, and very difficult to change your approach, especially if you've got a bunch of people around you saying you're the greatest negotiator in the world.
Another question that I think some people have is how long it takes to get these deals on the table and to get them to go through. So we have those short comments featuring the Secretary of the Treasury there, Scott Bessent, over in Switzerland. Tomorrow we're expecting some more comments. But I mean, how long do you think we're going to be going back and forth, seeing the president trying to negotiate with these other world leaders before we get to the consensus that we kind of saw earlier this week with the Prime Minister of the UK?
You make a very, very important point, which is maybe they can get a framework of a deal, which was the terminology they used for the deal that they just announced. Maybe they can get a tentative deal on some of the major issues. But as we always hear, right, devil is in the details. These are very complex, very difficult, very challenging negotiations. You've got hundreds, if not thousands, of moving parts, and you have a counterpart in the Chinese that are used to long-term complex negotiations. And even sometimes when we get a deal with them, they don't follow through. You can take a look at the deal that he got in his first term that sort of fell apart later. We've got to build in very detailed enforcement mechanisms into these deals, and that's not an easy thing to do. It takes time. Most experts I've read about talk about the fact that these deals take 1-2 years to actually dot the I's, cross the T's, and make sure that these are going to be long-standing deals that actually get implemented and accomplish your goals and objectives.
All right, Marty, finally, I mean, this isn't a topic that's going to go away anytime soon, but when it comes to the next several days and what we could be seeing, what are you most looking forward to?
I think that we're going to see a deal, and I guess I'll put on my predictive hat here. I think we're going to see a deal where both sides have come way off the edge of the cliff, come down from 145, 125, and we're going to see a lot of movement, in part because those were just non-starters, really, from a negotiation perspective. It really cut off all trade. So you're going to see some movement in terms of maybe a tentative framework, but then these negotiations are going to go on for a long time, and we're going to have to keep our finger on the pulse to really evaluate whether or not the U.S. or China actually comes out ahead in these trade negotiations.
Marty Latz, author of The Real Trump Deal, an eye-opening look at how he really negotiates. Pleasure having you here at Live Now from Fox. You take care, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, you too.